In this video, we are looking at the very famous Gettysburg Address, written by Abraham Lincoln and delivered on November 19, 1863. First, let's take a look at the context around this speech. We are in the midst of the Civil War, and the year 1863 had been hard-fought and bloody. In the Western theater of war, the Union was able to lay claim to victory in a number of battles, with the most important being the Siege of Vicksburg, thus attaining control of the Mississippi River and cutting the Confederacy in half. The Eastern theater had not gone well for Union forces in the first half of the year. The Confederates had a great victory at Chancellorsville, and Confederate General Robert E. Lee was poised to make an invasion of the North, hoping to encircle Washington, D.C., and deliver a knockout blow to the Union. In the summer of 1863, Lee made his gamble and invaded the Union. Upon crossing into Pennsylvania, he was met by Union forces near the town of Gettysburg. A 3-day battle was fought in which the Confederates took the worst of it. They were unable to break Union lines, and the process suffered 28,000 casualties to the Union's 23,000 casualties. This was a devastating blow to the Confederacy, because it could not replenish its numbers like the Union could. Lee would have to retreat back to the Confederate territory, and would never threaten to invade the North again. However, there was not a lot of time for Union forces to celebrate, and some of them had to march to their own city of New York and put down draft riots. The war was taking a toll on Northern and Southern morale. 4.5 months after the battle, Lincoln traveled to Gettysburg to attend a ceremony that would dedicate the battlefield as a soldiers' national cemetery. Lincoln was actually not the principal speaker. That went to a minister who gave a 2-hour oration. But Lincoln's short speech would become one of the most memorable in American history. Now let's take a look at the key points of the Gettysburg Address. The speech begins with referencing the founding of the United States and the Declaration of Independence. Lincoln goes on to acknowledge the battle and all the soldiers that died at Gettysburg had lost their lives for a noble cause, which was the fight for freedom and the preservation of the country, and that the living must carry on this fight. In this speech, Lincoln focuses on the themes of the Declaration of Independence and defining the Civil War as a fight for equality. The speech also reinforces the belief in democratic government. Moving on to President Lincoln's intentions. Lincoln is reinforcing similar themes he spoke on before. These are also his justifications and arguments for fighting the war. The speech corroborates the Emancipation Proclamation, which expanded the goals of the war from preserving the Union to also freeing the slaves. Finally, Lincoln's point of view is that of a president in the midst of a war, tearing his country apart. Now to who would agree and disagree with Lincoln's speech. Northern and Copperhead Democratic-leaning newspapers dismissed the speech and said it was, quote, silly, flat, and dishwatery, which Republican-leaning newspapers loved it, calling the speech a, quote, perfect gem that was deep with feeling. Most white Southerners would view this speech as more drivel coming from a bloodthirsty tyrant. And finally, let's talk about the very strong legacy of the Gettysburg Address. The address carries a continual theme of American history, in that the United States is always a work in progress to live up to the ideals set by the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. The Gettysburg Address will go on to be one of the most quoted speeches in history, and is a strong place in the civil rights movement of the 20th century. It is considered one of the great speeches in American history. Well, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, click that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share with your friends.